Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar on Reclaiming Your Time. This is in conjunction with the Chichester Chamber of Commerce and Industry. My name is Andre, and I am the practice manager here at Rowden's Chartered Accountants, and I'll be your moderator for today. Just quickly, for those of you who are unfamiliar with the webinar environment, these are the Zoom settings that can be found. And looking at those, what we have is over here is audio settings. This is where you can test and select your speakers. We can also have the Q&A function. If you have any questions, please pop it in there and we'll basically answer those to the end of the webinar. And we also have the leave the meeting. If you need to basically go for any reason, just click on there. We can go from there. Then I want to just quickly introduce our presenter for today, Benny Rowden. And yeah, Benny, over to you.
Thanks, Andre. And thank you very much, everybody, for attending. So I'm going to crack straight on with the webinar and the thought for the day. So the irony is not lost on me that if you're here now, you've already reclaimed some of your time. It's the people who aren't here that perhaps need to hear these messages even more. So well done for being here. I appreciate you making this choice and will endeavour to give you as much value as I can. Let's consider this quote: either run the day or it runs you. This reflects the theme for today's content. Before we get stuck in, I just want to throw in our usual disclaimer that the information in this educational webinar is general in nature and no substitute for tailored advice specific to your particular circumstances. So let's run through the agenda. So here's what we're going to cover in this session. We'll discuss why we'll always be busy and look at some mindsets that can help us reclaim our time. We'll also identify where time is being wasted and discuss some practical ways to free up your time. We'll also discuss your next steps and answer any questions you may have. To kick off, let's look at why we'll always be busy. Here are my top 5 reasons. First of all, work expands to the time available. We often pace our output to match the timeline we have. Our team members are doing this too. That's gone. Think about budgets or time allocated for jobs. When we have a budget or time allocation, which can be rather arbitrary, it brings focus to how much time we have available for completion. Distractions. We might have a job that needs finishing but lacks a clear deadline, so it sits waiting and we find ourselves procrastinating, picking up and putting down other seemingly urgent interruptions or getting distracted. Oh. Sorry, I'm having problems with the tech at the moment. So there we go. So our perceptions of busyness changes. It's all relative. For example, our high school student might have 1 hour of homework per day, but trying to fit this in with their other teenager tasks makes them feel very busy. A university student will experience an increased workload, although they can produce more, so they probably won't feel any busier than when they were at high school. When they join the workforce, their workload increases again and they still feel busy. The perception that busy equals successful. Think about how we respond to people who ask us how we're doing. Do you ever hear anyone say, I'm bored, or I'm struggling to fill my day? In this day and age, it's really rare to hear that. Being too busy is often an excuse. When we have more time, we don't necessarily do the things we wish to achieve. For example, working on our business is so often put on the back burner. Likewise, we put books aside to read and somehow never get to reading them. How many unread books do you have waiting for that spare time? In other words, we choose to work in the way that we do. So we have to make better choices about how to reclaim our time. Let's look at some helpful mindsets to get us started. I'd like to start off by quickly looking at the 7 habits of highly effective people developed by Stephen Covey. The first habit is to be proactive. Make the choice to improve your life through the things you can influence. The second is to begin with the end in mind. Your values are a framework for decision making. Use them to set your goals, then focus on achieving them. The third is to put first things first. Set your priorities and focus on them to avoid wasting time on unimportant and non-urgent tasks. The first three habits relate to managing and reclaiming your time, so we'll only be talking about these today. But the other habits are thinking win-win, seeking first to understand and then be understood, synergizing, and sharpening the saw. You may have seen this mindset before, as we refer to it often, but today I want to link it to the 7 habits we just looked at. More specifically, the first habit, to be proactive, and the second habit, start with the end in mind. Being proactive is about staying above the line and focusing on what you can control, not being a victim and saying there's nothing you can do about the lack of time you have. As confronting as it may sound, you're choosing to be as busy as you are. More specifically, you're choosing to do the things you're doing. Okay. So for instance, here, if we look at the Orbed model and take Rowden's as an example, we're now trying to act more above the line in that we've always wanted to provide more education to our clients. And I have to be honest that over the last few years, I've put it off because it's quite hard running these webinars. You know, there's the tech issues and, you know, getting all the slides together. It takes quite a lot of time to do it. But we don't just want to be a compliance firm. And compliance means just doing your bookkeeping, your VAT returns, your end of year accounts. We want to work with you to help you grow your business, provide you coaching, and bring all of our expertise in line with yours to help you get whatever you want to out of your business, because after all, it's almost certainly funding your lifestyle and the things that you want to do with your family. And that's why for us, reclaiming your time is so important. So we're now going on to this ownership, accountability and responsibility and saying, right, we're going to do this. And so we've put these webinars into our diary and we're making ourselves do them. And it is so easy to become the victim at the bottom of this Orbed model and say, oh, I haven't got time to do that. Yeah, I'll do it next month. I'll do it next month. So sometimes you just have to get on with it. It's really important for us to make the time for this to happen. Stephen Covey's second habit of highly effective people also ties into Orbed. The habit is called starting with the end in mind. It's thinking about how you'd like people to describe you at your funeral. Without getting morbid, you can start being that person now. So stay above the line on this and stay firm on your time management so you can be that person. I think my biggest fear is I really don't want to get to the point where I can no longer, you know, I'm that dribbling old person in the corner or something and think, gosh, you know, and I've seen somebody walking towards me, which is the person I could have been. And I don't want to be in that position. So I want to grab every minute of my day and be as effective as possible. The second mindset I wanted to share is Atomic Habits, which speaks directly to starting with the end in mind. Building identity-based habits will enable you to better prioritize your time and achieve better results. By focusing on who you need to be, your identity, and choosing habits consistent with that identity, your desired outcomes will flow more easily. From a reclaiming your time perspective, let's focus on your identity. Say you want to be more proactive and focus on what you can control, but you find yourself distracted at times. Imagine you've set aside time to complete some of your business plan actions. Then an email or a text message pops up on your screen or your phone. This is called the cue. You can see there's a message and you want to read it. You want that dopamine hit, and that is called a craving. So you open the email, and this is the response. You think to yourself, It's just a short email or a text from a client, and you know the answer, so you can quickly tap out a response and 10 minutes later you hit send. This is the reward as you feel satisfied that you've responded to the client's email, and before you know it, you're on to the next email or text, and so on and so on. So what we need to do is to remove the queue or replace it with a different one. What if you switched off your email and phone notifications while you're working on your business? The queue could then be the handwritten to-do list of your business plan actions created a day in advance. Then the craving becomes wanting to tick off each of the actions on your list. The response is to spend an hour on your business plan actions, and the reward is you get to have your coffee afterwards and scroll through your social media or emails. So we need a mindset that reflects our identity. Who do we need to be to control our time? Only you can adjust your behavior. And if you want to reclaim your time, you've got to do something different. Let's look at what you can do differently now using the best time management model ever written. This is known as the Achiever Matrix. It's also created by Stephen Covey. By the way, if you haven't read The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, put it on your reading list and read it. It's absolutely excellent. In a nutshell, this matrix reflects that we all live in a time-pressured world with multiple overlapping commitments. Urgency is no longer reserved for special occasions. So separating tasks into these 4 quadrants help us to better manage a flood of responsibilities, do excellent work, and maintain a positive frame of mind. It directly reflects the 3rd habit of highly effective people: put first things first. We need to spend less time working in the urgent quadrants and more time working in quadrant 2, the quadrant of quality. This is the quadrant of planning, prevention, and innovation. This is where we'll improve our processes and is where we are most productive. It's also where we can prevent a number of important things from becoming urgent and falling into that disruptive first quadrant, the quadrant of urgency. We also need to assess what things are not important as distracting us from working in the quadrant of quality. What disruptions can we minimize or eliminate? What strategies can we use to reclaim some of that time spent on non-important things? And I have to say that I have this Achiever Matrix actually up on my wall here in my office. It's one of my biggest sort of go-to things because it is so easy to be spending our time in the quadrant 1, quadrant 3, and quadrant 4, and not in quadrant 2. And we're actually working a lot with the team at the moment to try and get out of this quadrant 1 so that we're working to deadlines all the time. But equally, we're also working with them a lot on quadrant 3 so that they don't get interrupted all the time, that they actually they put aside time where they don't get disturbed so that they can really work on a set of accounts or whatever their actual project is for the day or the week. And maybe they leave their emails till the afternoon rather than looking at them first thing, say, so that they actually set aside time to do that. Apologies for the dog. That's Lyra, who's the author of our blog From the Dog, as so many of you know. So now we're going to have a look at the productivity pyramid, which helps us to look at strategies. So the first strategy to reclaim time is to utilize this productivity pyramid. So the pyramid looks at time versus your return on the time invested. There are 5 stages and strategies to maximize your return. The first stage is improve. This is where you can work on mastering your expertise or working better, where we can attend lots of courses and study, for instance. Let's use a chiropractor as an example. So in this first stage of setting up her business, she'll be attending lots of courses and seminars, both to improve her technical expertise, but also perhaps to improve her business knowledge as well. She'll probably be doing lots of reading at night as well. Next is increase. This is where you get more people to do what you're doing by delegating and outsourcing. This will be the first stage in leveraging your productivity. Third, we have invest, where you can invest in technology to scale your business. So for instance, once our chiropractor has another person on board, this can free up her time to look at technology and systems. This might be around a booking system, a reminder service, a billing system, or perhaps management reporting so that she can look at her figures and make effective decisions based on those figures. Then we can invent our own systems or technology to create valuable IP or an app. Once all this is in place, the first chiropractor might look at perhaps inventing her own IP or systems or procedures. These might be around how she started up the business, the steps she took, the insurances that were needed, the business plan that she put together, i.e. a step-by-step guide that she could license for other people to use that could be valuable for other chiropractors just starting out and which they could subscribe to. At that point, she might not be so hands-on anymore, and she can be looking at gaining a return from other things. Lastly, we can innovate, which in its simple form is working on better things. At this point, our chiropractor is at the top of her profession, and she might be speaking at events and getting paid for doing so, encouraging more people to subscribe to her systems and software, and has achieved that better leverage and practically is able to work smarter, not harder. So where are you on the productivity pyramid? Could you free up time by employing others or contracting out some of your work on the second level? What systems and software solutions could you utilize to free up your time and increase your efficiency? Improved systemization not only frees up your time, it also allows you to grow your business without increasing risk or workload for you. Are there other things you could be working on to derive a better return on your time investment? The COVID-19 environment has forced so many of us to think about how we can adapt, innovate, re-engineer, or reinvent the way we work. We're happy to discuss how to use this productivity pyramid to your advantage. Often a fresh set of eyes looking over your unique situation opens up opportunities that you may not have seen before. Combining your expertise with ours is also a great way to help distinguish the wood for the trees and come up with better ways of working. The second strategy to reclaim time is to stop working with the wrong people. Try to avoid working with people who don't pay your invoices on time, treat your team badly, don't live into your core values, or are unreliable. Opening of the door of opportunities to the wrong people frees up your time to spend with better customers or clients, and your team will thank you for it. Is there someone who comes to mind that you'd like to open the door of opportunities to? Might be worth having a think about that one. So the next strategy for reclaiming some time is to run better meetings. I appreciate that depending on your business, some of you will run more meetings than others. There is value in having regular meetings if they're done well, whether these are 10-minute toolbox meetings over coffee and muffins or meetings with prospective customers. Ensure they're efficient and valuable to everyone attending. Poorly planned meetings are consistently a top 10 time waster. Here are our rules of the game for running effective meetings. First of all, set a time limit and stick to it. If it's a toolbox meeting, make sure it's no more than 10 minutes. If it's a monthly team meeting, set the timing at 45 minutes. Check the time as you go through the meeting and remind everyone of the time agreed if it looks like the meeting will drag on. Certainly, I remember a time when I was non-executive of St Richard's Hospital here in Chichester. And the longest meeting we ever had was when they were trying to decide whether to bring in car parking charges or not. It was absolutely extraordinary. It went on and on and on. Very little time spent on actual care of the patients at the time, but it was, what a nightmare. So really, really important that you do set those time limits. Report prior to the meeting. Consider using a weekly team member report so you can see what your team have been working on, what challenges they have, the support they need, and what they've planned for this week. This will increase efficiency dramatically. We have a team member weekly report template that we can share if you'd like a copy. Set a regular rhythm for team meetings. For example, a daily or weekly huddle of no more than 10 minutes. Having these meetings scheduled means your team will remain fully informed and you won't be repeating yourself to every team member. Likewise, you're providing a forum for feedback, so you should get less interruptions during the working day. Have a clear purpose and agenda. Make sure that every meeting has a purpose and predefined agenda. This encourages attendees to prepare and minimizes the risk that the meeting will go off on a tangent and soak up unnecessary time. If an item comes up that isn't on the agenda, set aside another time to deal with that matter. Fifth, actions, not lengthy discussions. If you've received team member reports prior to the meeting and you have an agenda, then you should be able to make decisions quickly. If there needs to be a more detailed discussion, delegate it to the most appropriate people and set a separate meeting so you're not wasting everyone's time. Record your agreed actions from the meeting, who, what, and by when. Accountability. This is the check-in on the actions recorded from prior meetings. Having follow-up or regular meeting rhythms makes sure that the task gets done. So how well do your meetings stack up, and what can you do to improve the effectiveness of your meeting? The fourth strategy is to help you take control of your time, is to do a 10 hats organizational review. This is something we've actually just done at Rowdens, and it's really interesting when you actually look at what hats you're wearing. So the 10 hats is an essential mindset for business structure, leadership, and management. It clearly defines what roles in your business are operational versus those that are strategic. It also helps you draw accountability lines to allow for better planning, reporting, delegation, and time management, as well as helping assess resourcing gaps. It's important to ensure a business is sustainable, scalable, and ultimately saleable. The 10 hats reflect the 10 departments that exist in any business, big or small. Every department needs one leader, but remember that responsibility and doing are not the same. So the leader may delegate the work, but ultimately they're the final decision makers. So how many hats are you currently wearing in your business? And what hat should you consider removing to free up your capacity for more important things? Doing a 10 hats organizational review will analyze the hats you're wearing well and those that are perhaps not your natural strength or are being neglected. Then we can form a plan to ensure that you take some of those hats off, whether it's by outsourcing or more delegation or whatever. More specifically, the benefits of a 10 hats organization review are clarity of individual roles and how they work together, improved delegation and personal development for your team members, clear accountability lines, identifying resourcing gaps and outsourcing opportunities, provides for scaling up without blowing you apart. Let's briefly consider some examples of contracting out or outsourcing to help you reclaim your time. Firstly, marketing is an obvious option. Not every business can justify employing a full-time marketing person to create and implement their marketing plan, maintain their website maintenance, and deliver their email and social media campaigns. Finance is another common hat to outsource. Do you really need to be doing your bookkeeping and VAT in the evenings after work? Isn't it better to let a professional do it? They'll do it in half the time that you'll do it. And also they'll probably, well, almost certainly they'll do it better than you do, so that your figures are more accurate and you can focus on the things that you're good at. HR is another obvious one, an expensive one to get wrong. And let's be honest, not many of us aspire to be HR experts. IT and admin are other areas where outsourcing could minimize risk and save you time and money. There are many misconceptions around delegation. Delegation is a skill that should be mastered. Delegating is not flinging a task at someone and hoping they'll do it right. Effective delegation requires communication, First, you must assess the task and delegate it to the right person, providing clear support as they learn how to complete this new task. You must communicate the parameters, both verbally and in either an email or a written procedure. Ask your team member to repeat back the task instructions to ensure nothing was lost in translation, and set a clear deadline for completion. Articulating the project objectives will help the team member further to understand your expectations. Most importantly, set some time to review the outcomes together, as it's unlikely they'll get it right first time. One of the things you can do actually is that, particularly where we're working remotely at the moment, but even if you don't, is when you're actually doing the delegating and teaching the other person how to do it, it is well worth recording that session. Because they can then refer back to it, but also you can then put it into a library of videos, which will help you, if somebody else then needs to be taught how to do it. So it's one of the tips that I've learned, and I think that's really an excellent thing to do. Obviously, you can record on Zoom if you're doing a Zoom meeting, but you can also record on Microsoft Teams. And then also we use Loom videos as well. So Loom is a great app that you can get free that will mean that you can sort of record a system that you're doing on how to do something. And that will save you time in when you're delegating. So don't be surprised or offended if, with their fresh perspective, they find a more efficient way of achieving the desired outcome. This is often a happy byproduct of delegation, along with improved trust, respect, communication, and productivity, which all lead to improved profit and happiness for you, your team, and your customer. I was saying to Michaela, one of our account managers, the other day, that my absolute goal in life is to get every single member of the team far better at everything that I try and do, so that I can then sit back and put my feet up. That's that's what it's all about, isn't it? It's really trying to use people's strengths, but also train them so that they can be far more effective than you are. Many people confuse delegation with abdication. So abdication is where you set your team member up to fail, ultimately damaging culture, communication, productivity, and so on. So do look at that. Really try and set your team members up to do it better than you can. It's really, really important. And I think, on that slide, we've got really all the sort of ways to do that and what can happen if you don't. So there we go. So what will you do with the time that you freed up? 5 things that we recommend are committing to teaching others what you've learned, further consolidating your knowledge, spending time sharpening your saw, planning more effectively and being more commercial, creating better habits. One of the best books I've read is actually Atomic Habits by James Clear. And that talks very much about just changing one tiny little habit and just getting that ingrained into your system can have really manifold, it can really change what you do and what you achieve. So that's another book that's well worth reading. And of course, taking time for yourself to ensure your health and well-being. Really important that you take exercise, that you're just not working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Do take holidays. You will be much more effective. And that is a thing for Jonathan and Penny Rowden to really follow, as well, as I think our team will agree with. So, and breathe. At times we can all feel the water rising around us. Stress, pressure, and lack of time can damage our ability to maintain perspective on what really matters, both in the workplace and in our personal lives. We know we must take time for our wellness, or we'll likely be forced to make time for our illness. Instead of trying to fit our important me time activities amongst our work commitments, let's flip that on its head and bed those non-negotiable activities into our schedule and fit the work stuff in around them. There's a lot of evidence that if we do this, we're likely to turn up and be more productive. So what are your next steps from here? Assess where your time is being underutilized. This will help you become more conscious of the daily choices you make that impact your capacity. Get clear on the habits you wish to create, the ones you know will improve your productivity and focus. Planning for sustainable improvement starts with you and the leaders in your business. Identify your 3 most important actions and really do that. You know, think about it. After this webinar, what do you really want to do? How are you going to make those changes that are going to help you reclaim your time? It's just so important. We really do want to make sure that this hour has been powerful for you in bringing about real change. Focus on what you can do instead of worrying about what is out of your control. We are here for you and we want to help. So how can we help you? We can run a 10 hats organizational review. It's over 2 half-day sessions. I mean, it could be a full day in the office, but generally we find it works better over 2 half days. We can run a sort of business plan session with you and then have quarterly review meetings. Every business should have a business plan to really look. It's not only on your business goals, but also on your personal goals as well. But actually, the most important thing about having a business plan is the accountability that goes with it, to make sure that you don't just pop it up on a shelf and let it gather dust. It should be a living, breathing thing that you're working with. And so what we're finding best now with our clients is actually to have quarterly review meetings alongside that business plan. The business planning session itself is about a 4-hour session, and then you come away with a 1-page business plan that you can refer to. That you will have developed yourself, but with help from us. We can give you the Achiever Matrix worksheet free as well, and obviously a complimentary meeting free, which is really where we suggest that you start, so that we can actually have a look at what you're doing with your time and start to see, you know, where would be the best ways we can help you, and we can look at any other services as well that you might need to help you grow your business and have it as part of a happy, sustainable life, and not just something that's controlling you, and to free up more time with your family or whatever really makes you tick. So it's really, really important. The information in this educational webinar is general in nature, so it's no substitute for specific tailored advice and support. So really that's really how we can help you in more detail, but anything that you really want from us, then do please ask. So we've come to pretty well to the end of the webinar. Have we got any questions for anybody, Andre?
There's a few sort of coming in at the moment. One of the ones basically that's already come in is, I am completely overwhelmed and I don't have any time to work basically on this. I'm just constantly in my operation of the business. What is your advice?
Well, I think that it's really important to have a look at where you're spending your time, and really sit down and actually take a good, long, hard look at yourself, and then try and come up with some strategies to doing something about that. I mean, obviously we've given you some thoughts in this webinar and some mindsets to do that. But I think I spend a lot of my time looking at this Achiever Matrix and looking at where I'm actually maybe choosing to spend some of my time. I think it's very easy to spend it in the quadrant of waste if we're absolutely truly honest. You know, how much TV are we watching? How much time are we spending on social media that might not be the most useful you know, time? And there is plenty that, I mean, I spend quite a lot of time on social media looking at other Facebook groups for accountants, so I can learn an awful lot from them. But equally, you know, one does need to be careful about how much time you're spending there. And I do think that we, you know, we actually do have to take a long, hard look at that. I think also looking at the 10 hats organizational review can be really helpful. Have a look at how many hats you're wearing in your business. Obviously, that's something we can help you with. And it does help, I think, to have an outside person looking into help you with that. But often when we're running a business, we are wearing an awful lot of those hats ourselves. And there may be some that are much better outsourced to somebody else. Certainly we ran a business planning session with one of our clients fairly recently, and they were very, very busy and not being able to spend much time together, the husband and wife. And one of the things that they were looking at is what they could do, what they could delegate in the business to help them. And they were planning to actually bring in somebody with quite a lot of technical expertise to help them on one side. But in the end, what they did was they brought in somebody just to help in the office with the admin. And that then freed up the wife, who happened to be doing all the bookkeeping and everything, to then help the husband on some of the reports that he was doing. And that then freed up other people to do other things. And that actually was a fairly low cost, easy win that actually changed things completely for them. So I think it is worth looking at your delegation. I mean, certainly marketing, we've outsourced that. That's made a huge difference to us. And then, you know, things like IT, we outsource our IT, so we don't have to worry about wasting time trying to fix things if they go wrong. We just get our outsourcer Adam to do that for us. Equally HR, I don't even try to do that. I get somebody else to do all our contracts and get advice when you know, if we need to do something on that line. And so on and so forth. It's just really important to actually look at what's good for you. I think bookkeeping is a big one. You know, as accountants, we now do a lot of bookkeeping for our clients because it frees them up to do the work that they're good at instead of wasting their time and spending precious family time in struggling away trying to keep up to date with their bookkeeping. So I think there are lots of ways that you can do it, but it is hard. I mean, you know, I'm the first one to hold my hand up and say that I feel very overwhelmed at times. And it is then just a matter of sitting down and saying, okay, what can I do? What can I delegate? And actually you will find, particularly if you do have a team, that by delegating you can, you know, often actually other people will do it far better than you will, actually, because particularly as an owner, you've got your head in so many places that actually it's quite hard to do the work sometimes. So that if you delegate that and make sure that that delegation is done effectively, so you don't just abdicate it, you do delegate it properly, a bit of time spent, you know, and actually maybe just writing out the system that you want other people to follow. Some time spent now doing that could save you loads of time in the future. You know, it is so easy sometimes, isn't it, just to say, oh, I'll just do that myself, it's quicker if I do it, and then I know it'll be done properly, etc., etc. But actually it's far better to teach somebody else how to do it, and then they can take that over from you. And you know, don't try and just hold everything to you, because you'll just kill yourself if you do that.
Yeah, fantastic. No, thank you very much. I think there's no other questions coming at the moment. So if anybody that would like to send any questions, you can always email those over to us as well. But Penny, thank you very much. I think that was a very comprehensive sort of overview that we have there of everything, and exactly mostly on what we should be looking at, and how you guys can obviously help with this as well. But I think that is it for the moment. Yeah. So I'll just do a parting thought quickly. This is from our friend Yoda. So he says, no, try not. Do or do not. There is no try. So think about that. Listen to those wise words and commit to reclaiming some of your time. Make a simple plan today. Define at least 3 actions you'll take as a result of today's webinar. Write them down, and whether they're personal actions or actions to take within your business, give each of them an owner and a completion date. And remember, if you need our support, we're here for you. Okay, so that's just some ways. And if you're not already on our Facebook group, do join it. We have lots of things going on in there, and any
sort of blogs or whatever are being posted in there. People are putting in thoughts, etc. So it's a very good way to pick up exactly what's going on. Do keep an eye on our website as well, because our blogs are there, particularly Lyra's blogs, Blog from the Dog. They're very funny, at least we think they're funny, and we've had some great feedback from them, but they will take accountancy concepts that can be very, very boring and turn them into a way that everybody can understand, and have a bit of fun along the way as well. And obviously our contact details are there. So but thank you so much for making the time to attend the webinar. We appreciate your time is very valuable. So we do appreciate it, and hopefully it's been helpful. Please do get in touch with us if you do want anything, or if you need some help on anything. And we'd also, would be very happy to have feedback as well on the webinar. So please do let us know how you've got on with it. And hopefully we've given you plenty of ideas to ponder and some clear next steps for you and your business. So thank you very much, everyone.